About 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, Cindy, he's usually right on time or a little bit late, so we'll give him a minute.
Okay.
Have you tried to call him?
No, I haven't.
That might not hurt.
Okay.
He is here now.
Great.
I was just working on my script.
Good job.
Yeah, if you want to take over, feel free.
Mr. Merchant, it appears that we have all of our applicants except for item number 1, unless they're calling in on a different number and we're not able to identify them.
Okay. Well, if they don't appear when called, we can move that to the end. And just
Okay.
proceed with everyone else. Okay. Make sure we've got a voting pane. Looks like we're recording, Cindy. We ready to begin?
Yes, sir.
All right. Welcome everyone to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment meeting for, make sure we have the right date here, September 17th, 2020, which is now called to order. If the meeting's disconnected at any time, it'll be stopped and reconvened once a connection is restored. If a connection cannot be restored within 30 minutes, the remaining items under consideration will be continued to the next regularly scheduled Board of Adjustment meeting. The agenda and documents are located at okc.gov. For anyone wishing to speak on an agenda item or to speak under citizens to be heard, hopefully have previously notified staff by phone or email, and I will call on you at the appropriate time to speak. We will call the case, then I'll recognize the applicant or representative that signed up to speak. Then we'll recognize any protests and return with the applicant and board deliberations. Board members are able to ask questions or make comments at any time. We ask that all other people that are on the line keep your device on mute until you're called upon to speak. You can unmute your device by pressing *6 on your phone or clicking the microphone icon if you're on a computer. Please remember that only one person can be heard at a time. If more than one person speaks, the system will generally mute one person automatically. So we need to hear both people in order to have an adequate record. So please, only one person speaking at a time. And please don't interrupt board members while they're speaking. Looks like this is being recorded now. So we're good there. The meeting is called to order. And Cindy, can we call the roll, please?
Mr. Merchant,
Present.
Kitty Asbury, Mike Privet,
Present.
Mike Voorhees,
Here.
Monica Ybarra,
Here, present.
thank you, Chair. We have our quorum.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is to receive the minutes from the September 3rd, 2020 meeting. Do we have any changes or a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
Correct.
Mr. Voorhees, are you able to second the motion in Prime Gov?
Hang on. Yes.
Okay, once the voting pane shows, please cast your votes. And the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is continuance requests or withdrawals. It looks like we have a few.
We have 3 items today for continuance. Item 5, 14,774, defer to October 1st. Item 6, 14,741 to October 15th. And item 7, 14,729 to October 15th.
Is there anyone on the line that was hoping to be heard on any of these matters? Okay, hearing none. I did notice that a few of these have been continued several times. One of them looks like they're trying to deal with one of the protests, and then the other ones I don't really see. So at some point we might want to have the applicants in here just to explain the repeated continuances, but I'm okay with these so far. JJ, do you have any light on these, JJ or Cindy?
No, but we can, before they come up again, we will visit with the applicants.
Okay.
We'll have either some reason or them online to request the continuance.
Okay. Yeah, I'm okay with kind of one more, but I think it's getting about time where we need to hear what's taking so long. I didn't hear anyone on the line that wanted to speak on these, so board members, I think we're able to receive a motion.
I have a question. This is Shane Phillips.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm in the right. This is my first time. I do apologize. Is from what I'm understanding is the 14774. I apologize. That's not my number. I was just trying to make sure I was where I was supposed to be. Please disregard.
Okay, no problem. Looks like we have the ability to make a motion to.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, to defer these as requested.
Yep.
I'll second.
I'll second.
It's like Mike's been practicing his Jeopardy and beat you to it. Cast your votes, please. And it looks like it's approved, but we're just waiting for the confirmation. Staff, I may have missed it, but did we see the confirmation?
We did.
Yeah.
Okay. So those items have been continued as requested. Next item on the agenda, public hearings. Seeing nothing on the consent docket, we'll move right into items requiring a separate vote.
The first item for individual consideration is item 1, case 14,777. It's an application for a special exception of Shane and Taylor Phillips to allow home sharing in the R1 district located at 844 Northwest 49th Street.
Is the applicant on the line?
Yes, I am. Shane Phillips.
Okay. If you wanted to present your application, please.
Yes, and thank you guys for hearing me. My wife, Taylor, and I have lived at the property at 844 Northwest 49th Street for over 7 years. We recently purchased another home and would like to offer home sharing at this property. The house has 3 bedrooms and 1.5 baths and sits on a corner lot with a 1-car garage and a driveway. It'll sleep up to 6 guests And as we now live only a mile away, we still will be very involved with tenants as well as the upkeep and maintenance of the home. We will have strict house rules, including no parties or events and quiet hours from 10 to 8. Many of the houses in our neighborhood are rental properties already, and we feel this will be a great central locations for guests visiting our city in need of a short-term stay.
Okay, Mr. Phillips, how long were you seeking a special exception?
For the time allotted, I really didn't indefinitely.
So the code allows us to do up to 10 years, although we have not granted any of these up to 10 years, just because it's a very new code provision and we're kind of seeing how it shakes out. I agree with you. It seems like a good area for home sharing. The one kind of question I had is if you could, the board has the power to add any restrictions that we think are appropriate given a particular application. For this one, it looks like you have a pretty long driveway and a garage. Are the tenants or the guests going to be allowed to use that garage?
Yes, and actually we did address that in our Airbnb posting. So they have 2 spaces in the driveway and garage access as well. And what we planned on doing in light of some concerns, we're going to really try and ban street parking. We want to kind of take that away, especially if we're going to have folks come in, for a limited basis. So they should have at least 2, possibly 3 full spaces, depending on what kind of vehicle. And then we're just going to stipulate in our posting that street parking is prohibited to make sure that it's free flowing.
Okay, that was going to be my question. If you could, one of the conditions that we do often, it sounds like you've seen a couple of these board meetings, but in some areas we add a condition that it needs to be advertised as off-street parking only. And so if you're willing to add that, I think we can add that to the list of things, and I can support this application, but I'm only one board member. So board members, any questions or comments of the applicant?
Nope. Pretty straightforward.
Okay. I don't think I have anyone else signed up to speak on this matter. Is there anyone else on the line that wanted to speak on this application? Okay. Hearing none. Board members, I could get on board with, I think, 4 to 5 years. I don't know what your temperature is on the temporal limitation, but that's kind of what I think in this area, and given this application, they're going to live nearby, and I could see 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, I'm good with 5 even.
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
All right, that'll be my motion. Approve special exception, or sorry, for case number 14777 for a period of 5 years.
And then are we also adding the only advertising off-street parking?
Off-street parking.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second to approve the special exception in case number 14777 for a period of 5 years, and with the condition that it'll be advertised as off-street parking only. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, board. I appreciate the help.
Sure.
Okay. Item 2 is case 14778. It's a request of Lifestyle Homes for a variance to the 25-foot side yard setback in the RA Rural Residential District. It's located at 12308 Thelma's Way.
The applicant on the line.
Mr. Johnson is on the line. He's just having difficulty.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. If you wanted to present the application.
Yes, my name is Caitlin Deason. I work with Lifetime Homes. We're basically just filing a variance for side yard setbacks of 25 feet. Since this is a well and septic property, We want to apply the setbacks that are set on the site plan as is.
What are those exactly? What's the actual variant?
So the side setback on the north side of the property is, what is it setback, Dave? 9 feet? Is it 5 feet?
9 on one side and 5 on the other.
Yeah, we've got 5 feet on the north side of the property, and on the south side of the property, the minimum is a little over 9 feet.
What's that?
The reason that we request this is just because we've got access from the back part of the property onto the lot. And so there would be no hindrance to private lines whatsoever, whether it's well or septic.
That piece of property to the south that abuts 122nd, what is that?
I don't have a plat. Is this the south?
It's commons
There's like
area.
a road there and then that lot's over here.
There's a road and there's quite a bit of distance between this house, so 12308 Thelma's Way, and the property to the south. So it kind of comes down at an angle from that cul-de-sac.
You can see 126.
Is it a developable lot?
22nd. Say that again?
Is it a developable lot? I mean, could someone come in there and build a house next to it?
No, not right next to. No, not with the way the topography is on the site.
Okay.
So on the south, you don't think it's developable, but I think my issue is probably the north. The south, not so much, just because it didn't look like anything could or would be developed. But on the north, it certainly looks like someone could. And
Drop off
you'd be right there a few feet from their property line. So
Yeah, it's a pretty big drop off on the north side of that house. So the two levels of the lots are fairly different. So it's not something that I think would continue to pose an issue, especially since they're private lines. There wouldn't be anyone going between the homes except for the homeowners. So
yeah, I mean, I'll kind of tell you where I'm sitting. I'm only one board member, but I don't really have an issue with that a variance to the south as
Okay.
requested. But the north, I did want a little bit of space personally.
How much do you want? Because we could slide this way about 4 feet.
how much more do you think would qualify us for the variance? We can slide the house to the south since we have an area that probably will not be developed to the south. And that way that would give us a little bit more room on the north side of the property.
I mean, wouldn't that be a greater variance on the south then?
Yeah.
I mean,
So on the south side, I mean, we could move it over about 4 feet and we could deal more with a smaller setback on the south side, since that area cannot be developed. And there would be a greater space between the house that we're proposing and a potential house on that south corner. And then that would create a bigger setback on that north side to create more of a distance between the house that currently sits there and the house that we're proposing.
Where it says there's common area on the south.
So it kind of sounds like there's a chance that there could be a house on the south side.
On the south side, we just,
Right, just texted said it's common area to the south will never be built on.
it's common area to the south. We just looked it up. It's common area to the south side of this house, and it will never.
It's common area to the south. It'll never be built on, and Colin gave us permission. So we're good.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't look like it. JJ, can you tell by looking? I mean,
Yeah, it looks like, I just looked at it on an aerial. It looks like some kind of a natural gas facility. It's a utility facility directly to the south. So it won't be a lot. It's probably ONG.
Okay.
The gas facility is to the east, not to the south.
Yeah, it was either pipelines or a electric substation.
Yeah, it looks like quite a few pipelines running
It looked
north,
a little bit more
northeast.
like pipelines to me.
Yeah.
So the south would be less of an issue than the north.
Yeah, I mean, I understand their idea, especially if it's not going to be, if we're comfortable that it's not going to be developed, shifting the whole thing to the south so that maybe the
Yes.
setback there is a few feet and an
Okay.
increase more north.
So are we thinking that potentially we could shift it about 4 feet to the south, and that gives us closer to 9 feet on that north side?
It's still not, it's still a big variance.
Yeah, it's still, I mean, 25 is required, so.
I think the biggest thing that we would like to bring into play at this point is there is access to the back of that lot. You can see it off of 122nd at the back part of that property. There is an access road that will go back there to the back of the property. So there is a way to get back there without going through the side setbacks.
Yeah, I mean, that's only one of the concerns for me. I mean, another one is just, spread of fire and things like that for the reason we have
Okay.
these setbacks the way they are.
What do they need to see in order to make this work?
What is it that you guys would like to see in order for us to get the variance approved on that north side specifically?
I mean,
Like 20
I don't know
feet,
that
probably.
sorry.
20 feet, probably where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm thinking 15 or 20,
If that,
just given the
Because
area.
the issue that we run into with this lot is that if we were to scoot the house back any further, the lot is so narrow and it's so long that it shrinks our chances of building a house that is different than what we have already planned. Because the further we go back on the lot, the further it drops off in the back. And so we've been able to build up what we can to meet that setback for the front. But if we were, no matter how far back we go, that house is going to be that ranch style. Because the home buyers want to build out, not up, because this is going to be their home for an extended number of years. And so stairs is not really an option at this point. Because that's really the only way that we could build a house on this lot is if we were to go up to a second story.
Yeah, I didn't want to suggest that, but that's the only conclusion I kind of saw as well, is just a different style of house. Like maybe that style of house just isn't going to work on this piece of land. And I understand moving it back isn't going to help, but east to west isn't really your issue. Your issue is the width going north to south.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm only one board member, but one of the elements that we have to find here is that there's a hardship. And a lot of times that's where you get grandfathered in because the code changes or something like that. And so that's your kind of hardship due to nothing of your fault.
The difference.
There's a hardship there.
On the north side, it is drainage all down there. It'll never be built on. There are, there's probably 20 feet over there that variance will never even come into play.
Yeah, if I could see pictures of the property on the ground, how this relates, and if there is something that would cause a hardship where you could move the line, then maybe I'd be more convinced.
Yeah, and maybe this is one that now that you've taken the temperature of the board a little bit, you can go back to the drawing board and rework a couple things and represent the application to the board.
Okay, so if we can prove to you that 5-foot variance on the north side of the property is not going to pose an issue, like having ground photos of whether it's a drainage ditch or show you where a house would be built on that north side and show that variance would not become a hindrance, Is that something then that maybe you would consider?
I think that'd be helpful, and just a little bit more support on the topography of this area.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll actually just go out there and drive it and look at the property myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you
Yeah, we
take
can,
it,
that'd be fantastic.
And we're okay on the south.
And then a little bit more substantiation here on that south property that's abutting 122nd.
Okay, just some proof that we can't build there or that nothing.
Yeah, you or someone else in the future, you know, maybe has a crazy idea to make that piece work, but because of what we're
Okay.
doing here with this variance, it might interrupt that, you know, something like that. But
Okay,
just some more information on that. And then the key here is one of the elements that we have to find is that the variance that we grant is the minimum necessary. So after you prove that there's a hardship, you have to prove that what you're seeking is the minimum necessary. And generally that's done in these circumstances by, you know, shaving off the amount of variance that you're requesting. So
Okay.
right here, you're asking for a very substantial one. If you can shave that down a little bit or do something just to minimize that, I think that would go a long way as well.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board members, any other questions or comments?
Is a 2-week continuance enough? Or to the next meeting?
Yes. That's perfect.
Okay. Cindy, is that next meeting in 2 weeks or is it a skipped one?
It is October 1.
Okay.
Did we have any protests on this one? I didn't see any.
I didn't see any. Is there anyone on the line that wanted to speak on this matter that hasn't spoken already? Okay. Ma'am, is the continuance to the next October meeting going to be okay for your purposes?
That's
Yes.
my motion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank
Got
you
a
so much, guys.
No problem. We've got a motion and a second to continue the application in case number 14778 to the next Board of Adjustment meeting. Cast your votes, please. And that item's continued.
Yeah, so
Okay, Item 3 is case 14780, request of Kevin Craig for a variance to the side yard setback and maximum lot coverage for a detached accessory building in the RA district located at 10670 Northwest 107th Street.
The applicant on the line?
Yes, this is Kevin Craig. Can you hear me?
I can. If you wanted to present your application, sir.
So as stated, I'm Kevin Craig. My family and I live at 167 Northwest 107th. We have been working on a backyard development plan, which includes a, you're on the aerial view there. Basically, as it sits right now, there's really nothing in our backyard. But we are proposing to build a shop large enough that we can store an RV. And then we have very little shade, as you can see from this aerial. There are very little trees in the neighborhood, and the ground is pretty poor soil condition. So we would like to add a patio to the side of the shade and still have room to put a pergola beside a future pool. To my knowledge, the 1,250 square foot maximum, includes all structures, even playground equipment, etc. In terms of the side yard setback, you can see that this is a somewhat pie-shaped lot. We would like to be able to drive around the side of the house with enough clearance. If you'll go back to the 3D view, I'll point out back one slide. While it's not there yet, we would like to also put a home generator with the house, and the panel is there on the west side of the property. So it's really about the only place that we could put the generator. and also the gas meter is on that side of the house. So we're requesting the 15-foot variance on the west side to align up the shop with the house for aesthetic reasons. And if you go back to the plat, you can actually see the 15 feet is only at the very back corner. At the front, we would be closer to 19.5 feet. So I don't know. I mean, I think the aerial kind of gives a good impression of what we're seeking.
Are you going to be building a slab over that electric easement, or?
Say that question again.
It looked like there's an electric easement running right underneath where you're wanting to put your shed.
Yeah. So if you'll the staff report indicates that we have already received a revocable permit. While there is an easement, there are no utilities in it. This was the edge of the phase 1 and phase 2 addition. So I believe the engineers, when they made the plat, they just put an easement along the border between phase 1 and phase 2. But that is an unused easement, and we've received no objection from any of the utility companies with this proposal.
While you're on that, you're on a slide a little bit ago. That was, I think, was the drawing that was written out by hand. Cindy, if we could find that one.
It's page 41.
I think I needed to hear why. It seems like you're pretty close to being able to meet that setback. So I'm wondering why you couldn't kind of rotate that building and follow that setback line and not get a variance for that.
Well, if you'll go back to that 3D view. So I wish I had control of a pointer, but essentially the further we move this building to the west, the garage door starts getting behind the corner of the house, and not only behind the corner of the house, the edge of that generator is 5 feet. It has to be 18 inches from the house, and it's 3 foot wide. So that creates an obstacle in itself. And so basically any further we move it west, it'll make it more challenging to pull a large vehicle in and out of that building. I played with this for probably 2 months, and I actually drew these plans myself, and I worked with Physician for quite some time to try to find the best position.
Okay. Have you got a chance to look at some of the protests?
I have, yes, and I have talked to everyone, and I've in the attachments that precedes this, I've received signatures from just about everyone surrounding me in approval of this application, with the exception of one.
Did you want to address any of the protests before we take other folks that are on the line?
Sure. The protest, if you'll start at the beginning, I'll go through those slides there. So, okay, let's stop right there. The one thing I didn't see in the staff report that I've seen in some other staff reports is kind of a reference to the area. These are just the properties that I've identified, within my vicinity, that are also exceeding the current standards. So that's just more of a visual reference. If you go to the next slide. So the protest letter from Mr. McCaslin states something along the lines of crowding his property line. If you'll notice, his property line only abuts my property at the very rear. This building is planned to be forward of that corner. So I'm really not beside his property line. I mean, I am at the corner of it, but it would be the very, very corner. You know, his concern was not wanting to be able to see my building. He has a building himself of which blocks his own view of my property, and that's what I'm displaying here. And I actually have some slides looking from my property back to his, if you'll go to the next slide. So the picture in the upper right-hand corner is basically the view from the rear of my property towards his house. And essentially all you see is his accessory building. The view at the bottom right-hand corner is a view from essentially the middle of where the shop would be. And that's the view. I mean, you essentially see some trees that are in poor condition, and again, his accessory building. You can see his garage kind of in the very back, but essentially 90% of his house is blocked from my view towards his house. And I was just going to point out that the view there to the left, and one of the statutes in the code is that the accessory building should not be taller than the house. His building is, in my opinion, taller than his house. So I just kind of find it ironic that he's protesting my application when him himself is potentially in violation.
Yeah, and I will say there's some comments in the packet that we've received that kind of call out neighbors for violations. We don't know anything about what went into those. He may have a variance. That might be properly within. He might have a spud. I don't know. But he might be allowed to do that. The other neighbors might be allowed to do that. Who knows? But you know, we don't really know right now what the explanation is for all those. We're kind of bound by only the application that's in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can also say, if you go back you go back to that. You go back a couple of slides, would you please? No, I'm sorry, one forward. Two, okay, yep, sorry, back right there. These aren't numbered. Back one, please. Right here. So the property owner that this west line affects the most is Mr. Pennington, who lives there at the corner of Sundance and 107th. He fully supports my application, and he has signed the letter that should be maybe at the very end of these slides. So he has no problem with my application, and it affects him the most.
One of the issues that stuck out to me on this was this would be a pretty massive variance to the, I mean, it's almost 200% of the lot coverage that's allowed. So if you,
well, I understand that. The majority of that is a pergola and a patio and playground equipment. The size of the shop itself is only 1,400, I believe, roughly 50 square feet. The rest of it is structures which are mostly air, and you see in I mean, it's not uncommon in this area or other areas.
Does a playground or a pergola even relevant to this application? I mean, really?
I took the playground equipment. I took the small animal enclosure out of the application.
Okay.
Yeah, they're structures, but for your consideration, I took them out. The large animal
Right.
enclosure, I wasn't sure what that was, so I left it in. And then I noted that the pergola and the patio, although under roof and constitute a structure, are open and not enclosed. So for your consideration, I would ignore the small animal enclosure and the playground equipment.
Got it.
Which even ignoring that, we're still at 3,174 feet, right?
Yeah, still pretty big.
So, I mean, I think the best argument that they've got would be to try to have us ignore the pergola, which would knock off almost 1,000 square feet, and then maybe disregard the covered patio because it's open on 3 sides. So that knocks off almost another 500 feet. But under the terms of the code, as JJ's noted, I mean, we can't just ignore that. I think JJ's correct.
It does need a variance, but it is up for consideration that it's open. The patio cover is open on 3 sides. The pergola is open all the way around, and a pergola is not even completely under roof, but by definition, it is a accessory building.
Okay. Cindy, did we have anyone sign up to speak in support of the application?
I'm not sure if they're in support. I do know we have the Homeowners Association signed up. We may just have to ask, but I didn't have anyone signed up specifically for support.
Okay. How many people do you have signed up?
I just have one, but I noticed that there's some attendees and they may just be listening. But we have
I think there's probably a lot of folks that just find Board of Adjustment fascinating and want to listen in. So I understand that. But
there is someone that just raised their hand. Laura Sweeney.
Okay. So
just raising my hand to say that I'm here to speak against it.
Okay. So before we get to that, I would like to, just to keep it organized, if there's anyone signed up that intends to support the application, if you wanted to introduce yourself and provide comments, we'll wait a couple of seconds for that. And I will note, even if no one's here to speak in support, there were several support letters and emails and things like that in the record. So we're taking that into consideration. Now we'll move on to anyone who has signed up in protest. And we'll start with whoever this was that raised their hand.
Hi, I'm Laura Swingle. I am on the HOA board. I'm not the HOA representative. I just, I've listened to quite a bit of this. The things that I would point out is in that he's got, that lot has plenty of room. I still believe from looking at the site plan that he could make that building work within the space that he has allowed. That those are, we are on 1 acre lots, 1 acre plus lots, because we want space between us and our neighbors. And having listened to his critique of the one protest from the neighbor, he's only taking into account the view from the person's patio. He's not taking into account the view from their lot. And if they're in their backyard trying to enjoy their backyard, they've got his building closer than it's supposed to be. So again, I just wanted to point out that he's got, I believe from looking at the plans, that he has plenty of room to do what he wants to do without violating the setbacks.
Okay. And just while we've got you on the line, is there an issue from the HOA's perspective on the lot coverage issue?
At this time, he has not received approval from the board. Our bigger issue, one of our issues would be, and again, our HOA representative as well, we do not allow large animals per our covenants. And so he has not even informed the board of his intent to build a large animal shelter. So, and again, I believe Ron is on as well. He could speak more to that. He's our president.
Okay. Board members, any questions? All right, thank you. And we'll now recognize anyone else. And I guess, Cindy, if you had anyone signed up, I'll let you call them.
Laverne Stroh.
Hi, I'm
Could I
the,
speak? I'm sorry.
No, we'll get through all the protests first, and then we'll get back to the
Okay.
applicant.
Thank you.
Sure.
my name is Laverne Stroh. I'm the Vice President of the Homeowners Association. And the president couldn't make it today, so I'm filling in for him. We had several people call the HOA board when they found out about the plans that were going on over there. There were several concerns. One of them is possible drainage issues from the storm runoff from the extra building coverage there. There's poor drainage over there as it is, and when we have any downpours, it's a big issue over on the east side. And some of the other issues were that, you know, we moved here for open spaces, and now we've got all of this crowding going on, and, you know, there's too much on the lot. They figure it will detract from the neighborhood. And a major concern we have for the HOA is a variance like this could really cause issues because we've denied other things like this, and this could set a precedent for us having to fight a lot of this down the road. And we don't consider this a minor variance. We've done a lot of other minor variances, but this one we think is a large change to the lot size, not just a minor variance.
Does your HOA require homeowners to submit plans before they build on their lot, or?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
We got plans from Kevin initially, and it had a 5-foot variance on the west side. And we told him we could go with that, but then we saw the other plans, and that was not anything that we were aware of when we initially talked to him.
Okay. Board members, any other questions?
Where are we at right now on the total variance?
Let me scroll back up, but it's angled, so it looks like it's 6.5 feet at the top and 10 feet as it nears the bottom.
Okay.
I'm reading that correctly?
That's not correct.
Okay. If you wanted to give us the accurate number.
It's 15 feet on the back.
I'm mentioning the actual variance we would grant if we approve the application. So it's you'd be encroaching by 10 feet on that.
Oh, sorry.
That's what I mean. And then 6.5 feet near the top there.
That is correct.
I might get on board with 5 feet total.
Okay. Cindy, did you have anyone else signed up to speak?
But yeah, let's hear everybody out.
I don't have anyone signed up, but there is some attendees, and I'm not sure if they're just listening.
Okay. Is there anyone else on the line that wanted to be heard on this application, either in support or protest? Okay. Hearing none, we'll get back to the applicant if you wanted to respond to any of those issues.
Yes, I would. I guess I'd first like to point out, Cindy, do you have the letters of support I submitted? We can show those.
Those have been circulated to the board. I don't know that she can incorporate those in this live meeting, but those have been sent out to all the board members, and we've been receiving letters of support and protests for the last week. So I know we've reviewed all of those, and they're a part of the record.
Okay. Well, I was just going to point out that I don't know where Miss Swingle lives, but basically all but one of my immediate surrounding neighbors have signed off on this proposal. She mentioned that the covenants does not allow any large animals. Okay, I'd like to back up one statement. I asked Cindy if I could submit the covenants and bylaws as background to this application. And I was told that the board doesn't really get into disputes between the property owner and the HOA. However, since it has been said that no large animals are in the covenants, that is not accurate. Item 15 in the covenants specifically says only one horse shall be kept on any of the lots in Sundance Lakes. So I'm not sure where that comment is coming from. I mean, with the comment to her opinion that, you know, the building could be moved. I mean, again, I'm an engineer. I laid out everything multiple times. Any further east would impede the ability to safely get around that west side with a large mobile home. And that's also why I angled it. You know, I tried to get away from the property line as quickly as possible. And again, all my immediate neighbors, with the exception of one, are not only not in opposition, they're actually supporting me, as you can see in that letter.
If it were me, just looking at these pictures, I might, flip that building around and run it parallel with the house and behind the house and south of the pool. And I think,
Yeah, I've got some kind of larger concerns so far. So I'll voice those and then we can see what the board, see what other opinions the board has. But for me, my thought with this the whole time was the biggest problem you'd have is the hardship issue. And, as I mentioned on the prior application, generally a hardship, the easiest case for hardship is maybe if the code has changed and you're no longer in compliance or something like that through no fault of your own. Wanting a pergola is generally not a hardship. Wanting a pool is generally not a hardship. Well, I know there's a lot of content in our packet that people should be able to do what they want with their land and all that, and I completely understand. I completely agree with that. I just don't know that this board is your remedy for that issue. Obviously you still have to comply with city codes with whatever you want to do with your land. I just think our board we have very narrow powers. We can grant kind of very small variances here and there for things that hit the statutory elements. This to me seems like a major deviation from the code and from what our normal allowances are in these types of cases. So, if you're looking for a couple feet of a variance and you've got a good reason, it's a normal case for a variance. Here, you're looking for, again, almost 200% of the lot coverage for a variance. That would be the largest variance that I can think of that I've ever seen in application. The setback variance, I could probably get on board. I think I agree with Mr. Privet that probably 5 feet and that's it. I think you could still, it's about 5 feet at the front where you'd be entering your RV. And I think you could make that building such that 5 feet would work. So, maybe I could possibly get on board with the setback variance, but the lot coverage issue plus the setback, that's where I'm struggling finding a hardship and also finding that it's the minimum necessary to alleviate the hardship and all those things that we have to find that the Oklahoma legislature, not even the city council, the legislature said we have to find these issues. I'm struggling on this one. I think this might be a planning commission issue or go back to the drawing board issue for me personally. Hate to defer things to Mr. Privet all the time at planning commission, but That looks like kind of where I'm going on this so far, unless there's some substantial changes.
Well, and I'm thinking he may have an issue with his HOA as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, and that's not, for us, as the applicant mentioned and Cindy
Yeah,
told him,
we can't deal with that, but
yeah, not really an issue for
so,
us. Yeah, so that's kind of where I am. I'd also think at least one of the concerns of the neighbors could be alleviated with the stormwater and the flooding issue, using some permeable substance there instead of concrete. I think that could help, but that's, again, I mean, you could modify your application here, but that's just a minor issue, but I'll just throw that in there while we're talking about things. But that's any board members with questions or comments?
Yeah, my thought is I hate for Mr. Craig to have a denial because that's kind of where I'm going. If he would like the opportunity to try and rework this and submit a different site plan, make it a little bit smaller, a little bit different. This is pretty substantial. And I'd hate to give him a denial without an opportunity to rework this. So I kind of lean towards a continuance and submit a new site plan that's a little bit less of a massive variance. Or I just can't do this one.
Also, I'll just jump in here too and kind of reiterate some of the concerns that our chairman identified. But beyond that, I just, if you're trying to kind of get a feel for what the board is thinking on this, if you are thinking of reworking your application, I just had a couple of thoughts. You've mentioned that this is necessary in order to get a large RV. I think that there's other options here. Maybe you get a smaller RV. Maybe that I think some of the other board members have mentioned some other things. But to the comment about, only one neighbor is complaining about this, I think from the larger community aspect, these sorts of things, especially a variance of this degree, isn't just impacting the immediate neighbors. You're talking about the entire community, and there's clearly, several people in the community that are not on board with this. So those are just some of my thoughts if you want to gauge kind of where all the board members are going.
I think that's a good point. I mean, I think the precedential value of this is an issue that I think about as well. And I know the HOA representative mentioned that as far as, if we grant this, 5 other neighbors are going to come in and say, I'd love a pool and a pergola and a new shed to work on my cars and, store an RV. And what are we going to say then? We have to sort of grant that, I would think.
So Mr. Merchant, regards to that specific item, I did find another case number. I don't have that in front of me now, but I had asked when filing this application if case precedent had any weight. And there is another, and it does appear we're looking at a continuance, which I'm fine with, but if I can have that case number ready to present it next time, is that something that sounds like it would bear weight with y'all?
Each case stands on its own. So we do look at each application independently. Also, the board makeup, changes, and the city changes, and the city's initiatives change, and all that. So it wouldn't hurt. I'll put it that way, just to see maybe what the deliberations were in that application. But at the end of the day, each application kind of stands on its own. I'm just more concerned about not only this neighborhood, but every neighborhood in the city. If we're granting this level of a variance and we're comfortable with that, at a certain point, the code requirements don't mean anything anymore.
Yeah, start to get kind of like more. City limits. They got shop wars going on over there.
Yeah,
the shop's bigger than the house and the pool next to it.
Yeah.
Well, and that was one of the reasons why I showed the first map. Within less than a mile, there's over a dozen that are currently out of compliance. I'm trying to present my case ahead of time before any construction. I don't want to be the guy that submits the building plans and then builds whatever he wants and tries to get away with it after the fact.
No, I agree, and I appreciate that. I know we certainly appreciate that. I'm not saying you can't do it or anything. I'm just saying this board, and this is probably no fault of your own. The city staff probably told you to try out a variance first and kind of see what the Board of Adjustment thought about it before taking some other options. And again, not any fault of your own, but we just have very limited powers, and I think this currently kind of exceeds those powers. Although, Planning Commission might approve this as it's rendered. Who knows? So they just have more discretion than we do on stuff like this. So, and I will ask, kind of, JJ, is this something that if he did want to pursue the Planning Commission, he could potentially do that and roll this application over into that?
Not really. I mean, he has the zoning he needs. It's got residential permissive zoning. It's just a matter that he can't meet development regulations. So it really belongs here at the board more than at the Planning Commission.
Okay. We can't pawn it off on Mike Privet.
Thanks, JJ.
Well, I think board members, any other questions or comments?
The last comment I'll make, Chairman and Mr. Craig, is that, you did show us the map. There's a lot of other properties around there that you, as you said, are out of compliance or maybe have had variances granted, but to what degree? And I think that's kind of what I am hearing is the main issue here is just the degree of what you're requesting here. And so there may have been minor variances to those other properties, but that's my last comment.
Yeah, maybe they don't have the pergola or they don't have the pool, but they have the shop building. If he came here with a 1,400 square foot shop building request with a minor variance and none of the other stuff, it'd be a much different application. And so, maybe that's what is the case in some of those. Maybe those are 1,200 square foot shop buildings in those other cases. Who knows? Mr. Craig, is 2 weeks or a month, or how long do you think you would need?
I would let's go for a month.
Okay.
Give me a month to look at it, and we'll come back to you.
Okay. Again, I think working with some of the neighbors, obviously you're gonna have to live there for the foreseeable future and get along with your neighbors and all that. So it seems like you're pretty close to being able to work some things out with your neighbors. Again, I think you could work with a smaller setback requirement. I think the permeable pavement, I think, would help the flooding thing, even if it's partial. And then spreading some of these items out, you might be able to get something to where all the neighbors agree. Who knows? Cindy, are we meeting in a month?
October 15th.
Okay.
That's my
If
motion.
we have a motion to continue, looks like there's something on the voting pane. Mike Voorhees voted, so we could use a second.
I'll second. Oh, Monica beat me.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second to continue the application in case number 14780 to the October 16th meeting. Cast your votes, please.
Did you say the 15th or the 17th?
I meant to
15th
say
is what I meant.
the meeting is the 15th.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so continue to the 15th.
Thank you very much.
And it's approved. All right, we'll see you on the 15th.
Thank you again.
Item 4, case 14781. It's a request of Miller Architects for a variance to the fence requirements and a special exception to allow above ground flammable liquid storage at 1111 North Dewey Avenue.
Is the applicant on the line?
Yes, Amanda should be on the line.
Okay. Looks like I've just unmuted you. Amanda, if you'd like to present your application.
Okay, so everyone can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Amanda LaBrosse. I'm with Miller Architects, and this is actually a revision to the original application. during the design process, we came to the conclusion that a larger generator was needed and it was taller. So we had to raise the height from the original accepted 10 feet to the 14 feet. And then the integral fuel tank below requires a special exception.
All right. I think my only question, well, it wasn't really a question. I was a bit concerned about the fuel tank, but it looks like this, looking at the code, it looks like this would be allowed for fleet vehicles in this area. And so it's just your use that is the issue. Does that sound correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I seem pretty straightforward to me. Board members, any questions or comments?
No, DDRC approved it. I'm good with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anyone on the line that was hoping to speak on this matter other than the applicant? Okay. Hearing none, you can take a vote.
I think it's real important the hospital has a generator, so I move approved.
I agree. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the variance and special exception in case number 14781 for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for variance and a special exception. Once you're able to, cast your votes, please. And those are approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next items were continued. So we'll next move to additional items. Seeing none, well, board members, did you have any additional items? Okay, board member, communications or board reports, did we have any? Are there any citizens to be heard? Okay, on other business, I did want to add one item here, which is just whether the board members were okay with receiving digital versions of your packets unless you specifically request one from Cindy. Is there any thoughts or objections on that?
I'm fine with mine. Like I said, I've got plenty of screens. I open them all up. Good to go.
With that.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're all set up. Well, good. I thought we'd save a couple whales while we're here, so save a little paper. So I guess we'll do that going forward, but for particularly long packets, I usually do like to have a hard copy just to mark them up. So I might still request one, but going forward, it sounds like we're okay with digital versions. Cindy or municipal counselor, we don't need a motion or anything for that, do we?
No, it's not on the agenda anyway, so.
Yeah, just kind of an internal housekeeping is what I thought it was. Okay, any other business while we're here? All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.